So what I would like you to start with is ask you about your entrepreneurial journey, like how it all started, and if you could walk us through those different startup ventures like CodeWise, Contact.io, Talent Alpha. Tell us like what those ventures are about so that everyone are on the same page, and tell us how it all started, but also like what's your current role in those, because obviously you know that journey evolved and you left some of those probably ventures or you were less involved. So it would be great to give some context to the audience to understand like the answers or properly your answers. So if we could start with that, then that would be great.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much, and please make sure that I don't wander too much off the track, or I'm too shallow on some things, because it's very hard to get the right scope in the first shot. So my entrepreneurial journey started when I was 13 years old, I think. There was this huge invention, which is basically internet as we know it today, that I really got interested in. So I started to teach myself how to code, how to build websites, and these kind of things. And quickly I learned that I can make money. So then when I was 13, I was somewhere in the years 1997, something like that. And I quickly learned that technology is something that I know how to do. I like it, I enjoy it. I am also interested in business. So, while I was teaching myself to code, I was also reading Forbes, which kind of showed up in Poland back then. And I decided that I want to do business studies. So I went to WSB National University in Nowy Sącz. It was a private school, still exists, very good one at that time when I was studying there. And this is where I started study business, and I met one of my first co-founders. And in 2010, we decided that we don't want to work for anybody. So we're going to try to build our own business, which was CodeWise. Why I started that together with them, I don't know. But I think the key factor was that everybody was telling us, hey, get a job. And ideally go to like a larger company and start building your career, which seemed very dull to us, So we decided to start a software house because CodeWise in 2010, late 2010, was a software house. We were doing everything just to survive. For 1 year, we've been barely having money for food, so it was very, very rough. Living in some terrible places in Krakow just to survive. We had an attic room rented from the parents of my co-founder friend, where we were having our computers and we were working and building stuff.
That doesn't sound that poor, like attic.
Well,
these days, those are one of the top.
It's a garage, but on top of your house, so it's not fancy at all. But yeah, it was at least it was quite warm. But yeah, so first year was a real struggle. We were thinking, okay, we're gonna drop it. Doesn't make sense. It just doesn't cut it. But that was 2010, 2011, where software houses were very, very new. Like people didn't know, anything about building software then that much in Poland. So quickly we did a couple of really good projects for our future co-founder, Robert Gryn, and he really liked our company. He really liked the way how we've been building software. And we liked his ideas for building products, different platforms that he was inventing. So we took him on board, we gave him shares, and we started building a company together. And that journey kind of started really fast. We've been growing, building new products, hiring new people. We became one of the, I would say, best places to work in Krakow for tech engineers, because we've been dealing with very high tech at that time. Like, for example, deciding where to send the traffic under 20 or 30, 40 milliseconds. Who's buying that traffic live, and so on and so on. So people like that, engineers like that, these challenges. Anyway, fast forward, CodeWise was growing, and this is where first lesson of my life starts. This is where kind of greed and ego plays a huge game in doing business, because this is where one of our co-founders, Robert, he decided that he wants the company for himself. So he stepped in, kind of.
Okay. So can you dig into that, because that was actually one of the stories you shared with me, and I was like super surprised hearing that. So I'm sure that the audience would like to also get some lessons learned from that. So can you tell us what happened, and how it ended up, and also what are the lessons learned from that relationship? I wanted to dig to that later, but if we touched that already, then let's try to explain.
It's a good lesson, because I've known that person and my co-founder for many years before, so I had a lot of trust for that person. But then you have to realize that this is what happens among co-founders. That simply sometimes there is greed that comes in, right? Or of course there's so many other reasons that people will come up with, but at the end of the day, it's all about money. So long story short, I would probably be so much better off if we had a strong contract in place between founders. So like a co-founder agreement, where these things are regulated. But again, this is 2010, 2011, 2012. It's very rare, and startups.
Have you had that contract, or
no? I haven't.
Okay.
That's why it was very easy to play. I was basically out of university, didn't have any money to go and pay to lawyers and so on and so on. So I had to agree with whatever the terms I was offered. So this is how me and the other founder, we parted CodeWise, basically not getting anything out of that. Because
this is also something to clarify, because you managed to successfully exit from, not you because of the agreement, but in general the CodeWise was acquired, right?
Yes, it was sold a few years later, yeah.
Okay, so and because of lack of that agreement, you haven't had the chance to receive a proper percentage of that fee.
The only thing that I got is the experience, which is also priceless.
Okay, guys. So this is one of the key lessons learned that I learned from Szymon, but I also want you to memorize that co-founding agreement is a crucial part of starting your business. So even though you think that you don't have money for a proper legal advice, I think that this is crucial to dedicate some time to that part. And Szymon was also telling me that he's very open for sharing his experience with you. So in case you would like to get his advice in that regard, he would be very open for that.
And especially in today's world, you can use, of course, internet, and you can use ChatGPT to help you with outlining what should be in a founder's agreement, what kind of things should be taken care of. This is, when I start to think about co-founder and doing new business, that's the first document I start with. And this is just one example, but I had many other examples where, for example, the co-founder agreement saved the business. Because, for example, in one of the businesses that I co-founded, still exists and starts to grow, we had a CTO that's supposed to join the business full-time. So he was allocated shares, and he's supposed to join the business full-time at a certain point of time. But knowing life, we put certain thresholds. If he doesn't join by explicit time, there's going to be less and less of the shares that he has. So the multiplier is going to go down. And guess what happened? He didn't join. So thanks to that, we didn't have to do anything. It was all in the agreement. Nobody was stressed about it. You don't have to, think about it constantly because it's regulated by the agreement. So it's very useful to work on that.
Awesome. So I think we touched, CodeWise, a lot. What about the other ventures like Contact.io or Talent Alpha? Can you tell us like how it all started? What interests me, like how you came up with the ideas for those ventures, whether that's your idea or whether one of the other co-founders of yours, and in general, like how you come up with ideas for so many ventures, right?
It's funny story with Contact.io because I was still at CodeWise, and I went to the bank, and there was this clerk who was servicing our company. His name was Tomek. And Tomek, after dealing the banking stuff, he asked me if I do startups. And I said, well, I think yes. And he asked me if I can spend with him half an hour because he wants to consult a project. So I said yes. He knew where the office is because he's our banker. So he visited me in the office, and he came with his friend. But I learned very quickly that his friend is blind. So Tomek Kołek came together with Tomek Koźmiński, who is blind since he was a teenager. And they outlined to me an idea that blind people have no way to navigate in public places and in museums and airports and so on and so on. It's very hard for them to get around the world. So they created this very small Bluetooth low energy device that holds the content for the museum. And when somebody with the BLE enabled phone comes in, it delivers the content of audio description of a certain painting, yeah? I thought that this is pretty cool, and I really like that it can change not only the lives of visually impaired, but also potentially other people, right?
I can fully confirm that because I'm also in a beacon business, because of those sensors that Szymon is referring, those are small beacons, so definitely there's a huge potential for that. Okay, so that was the idea based on your friend's story. What about Talent Alpha? Is that also something that was let's say originated by another co-founder of yours, or that was an idea brought by you?
Yeah, Talent Alpha was an initiative that was brought in by Przemek Berendt. That was kind of his idea to venture into space. I really liked that idea because first we're doing IoT hardware to digitalize the physical world. So like create digital twins and kind of do all the interactions that happen. But then I got hooked with the idea that we can actually do the same with people. So we could use psychometrics and other mechanisms, other tools that would help us to match people with jobs or assignments that they are really good fit with. So that was, as you can see in my career, there are things that grab my attention, and I kind of get really obsessed about them. So I decided to join Talent Alpha and pursue this part. So in Talent Alpha, I was working on the scientific piece together with a grant that we got from NCBR for I think close to 5 million zlotys, and I also helped with fundraising the initial round for $5 million, and hiring some of the key staff in that idea.
What's your involvement these days in each of those ventures that you so far described?
So in all of these 3 ventures, I exited, so I'm no longer involved. I, of course, always speak highly and make sure that they get everything that they need. But I'm focusing on the new ventures that I...
Exactly. So tell us what you're focusing on now.
Okay.
And again, like how those ideas generated. You mentioned passion and interests, but
there's also talent, which is super important. So whenever I think about a certain project or certain need, because like this is where we often forget that, it's great to build businesses that are based on technology, but the problem has to come first. And the product market fit is the most important element of that. So I'm trying to think about it in this way. In the new businesses that I'm building, some of them are very pragmatic. Like one of the businesses that I'm scaling now is AI voice agents. So we're building quite sophisticated voice agents that are automating a lot of the communication with your customers, for example. And this is right now, like, companies are absolutely focused on reducing their costs. So if you're looking to start a business, I really recommend something that is reducing the costs of running business, automations, these kind of things. So that's one of the things that I'm building. Scaling actually right now, it's already built.
Are you looking into trends? Because you mentioned AI. Is that because it's currently a trend, or
my previous mistakes when running business were that too often I was too hooked up with the idea, but I didn't check the trend. So, for example, like the whole software house idea, that was kind of 8 to 10 years too early, I would say, because then the market was booming. Actually, with beacons, it was ideal. So I was very lucky with BLE, with IoT.
Apple helped a lot.
Apple helped a lot, exactly. And that was an amazing journey. I traveled across all of the world, basically, on every continent. I've been to all the offices of large companies, and it was a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, you cannot count on luck. I mean, it's great that you get luck, but looking at the chart and understanding where your offer is right now. For example, on the what's the curve name that they use to depict where the technology is right now? There's this hype curve. Yeah, hype curve. So like I really like to look at technology that's coming on the plateau of productivity. There's a lot of cool stuff there. But anyway, timing is super important. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other venture that you want to mention to us?
Yeah, I am. I would say hatching a couple of other things. So one thing that I'm hatching is something that we started a few years ago with a couple of aficionados who really hate the fact that people have certain expectations when they look for the job, but when they join the team, those expectations they meet reality, which is totally different. So that's how we've been thinking about building a model that helps to mitigate the gap between expectations and reality at work. So that's how we created SpaceBridge. And SpaceBridge is a piece of sophisticated technology that enables larger companies actually to have really good person-team fit. So that's one of the things that we're hatching. And the other thing is called EcoMyco. EcoMyco is a way to reduce plastic waste and turn it into valuable resource. For example, like heating insulation for construction or for industrial use.
Awesome. You mentioned at least 2 times about the projects that refer to selecting the right people for the project, because Talent Alpha is about that, and another venture is also referring to that. I know that it's based on your experience and interest related to psychometry. Can you tell us how, because having the right people on board for the venture, this is one of the known, let's say, success factors behind the startup success, right? So can you tell us how you are approaching that? What's your strategy, your methodology for selecting the right people? Obviously, let's focus on co-founders, because we agreed that this is the most important core team, right? But also the other team members, how you are selecting them, and what's the best, let's say, strategy?
Yeah, but this is something that I was really shocked when I started to dig into psychometrics. I realized that all the science behind people at work, team building, and that fit is there for like 20 or 30 years already. So for me, it was great because I could read all the books, read all the reports, and also look at the psychometric tools and quickly build something that's going to be sensible, that's going to be helping me, for example, to make the decisions. So if it comes to psychometrics, I have like 2 tools that I really like. So I'm using Gallup Strengths Finder, which is a tool that gonna look into your characteristics and give you top strengths, top areas that you should be working with, reinforcing, and so on and so on.
Okay, and which of those skills or strengths like you're looking for in a person, or like what's the combination of those in a let's say best co-founding team?
So it's all about diversity, but what does it mean? It means that we understand that the key roles in a company, the key people that we have, or key founders, they have complementary kind of strengths, but also like there is variety on those things that are needed in building a business. So for example, if you have somebody whose strength is into relationship building, but also is a good strategist, yeah, you know what kind of which conversations that person should be having if we tackle certain things, yeah. So understanding those strengths and putting them in front of people, so people can now see, okay, so this is your strength, so you work on this. We don't have to argue. We don't have to kind of risk too much.
At what stage you're, let's say, conducting those tests? So like, because you mentioned that, you know, the stories of yours, right? Some of your friends were approaching you with an idea, and I don't envision that you were, you know, sitting in the restaurant and conducting the test. So how you were approaching that? Whether you were doing that from the early days, or is it something that you currently understand that this is important, and how to properly, let's say, execute it?
Yeah. So it doesn't. It might not necessarily work when your friend is calling you and saying, "Hey, join my startup." Yeah. But it's actually, now I would do that because at the end of the day we don't know people, and it takes few good years to really learn people's strengths, to learn their profiles, to understand them, and what is more important, to understand their motivation. Because, for example, once I was in a very toxic setup where one of the co-founders had a really bad motivation behind doing business. It was not about making money. It was not about building great product. It was about his ego. So you have to find a way to figure out people's motivation, especially on founders level.
Are you able to figure that out from the test?
From the test, it's hard. But usually high levels of ego come together with narcissistic profiles. So you can read a little bit of psychology to understand how narcissistic profiles work. And then when you put them on profiles like Principles U by Ray Dalio. So Ray Dalio, this guy that co-founded Bridgewater Capital, which is one of the largest investment companies, he created a very nice psychometric model that consists of multitude of elements. It's psychometry, it's profiling, and it puts all these together in a very nice profiling tool. It's you can do it for free on principlesu.com or .org.com, I think. And for example, if you use this model, you could see some like interesting trends in people's characteristics and understand what kind of role they can play in the organization.
Do you have any other, let's say, examples of the profiles that you'd rather avoid in a co-founder profile?
Yeah, it's funny, but so I also work a little bit with other co-founders, helping them, guiding them a little bit, maybe coaching a little bit, and I use psychometric tools so I can quickly understand them. And for example, sometimes there are these very rare mixes where one CEO he had the strengths of the top 2 strengths of his profile were strategy and analytical thinking. And guess what happens on brainstorming meeting or problem-solving meeting. This guy comes in and he solves everything for everybody, and he goes out and expecting that they understood what just happened and they will know what to do. Yeah. And if you have any creative people there who also might have strong, for example, strategy thinking skills, they're gonna feel like, okay, I'm not needed in this company. Why would I spend time here? Yeah. So sometimes our strengths can be a double-edged sword. So we have to keep looking at them and balance them out to make sure that we maximize the value for everybody, so everybody has fun in the process.
Any other tips in selecting the right team, or how actually to build the right culture of innovation, or how to attract and keep the talent over years? Because that's also some of the challenge probably for the startup too. When you have so many corporates around that are offering stable salaries and good working conditions, like how to attract the talent and also how to keep it.
I like to think about it as a process of cultivation rather than building culture, because culture is the behavior and kind of standards that people bring in. It's not something you set, you're setting in the company. So I like to create an environment where I invite people who have, similar mission, who really want to achieve something. Of course, not everybody needs to have the same level because it's impossible, yeah? But what is important that the people who join, especially early joiners, early badges, they are people who are really excited by the domain in which we are working. That's super important. And then you make sure that you build something with, you build a team with high density of talent, meaning that...
can you explain that? Because that's interesting, like what we mean by talent density and how you are approaching that.
Yeah, so when you are early in your career, you wanna start working on something to learn, yeah? And then kind of we forget about this and we just work and we figure out at some point that we don't learn. And I think this is something that I basically uncovered quite late in my career, that I really want to work with people smarter than me. But what it really means is that I want to have people that not only engage with me and kind of stimulate me intellectually, but also that I can really learn from their behavior, learn from the way how they think, and also learn from their experience. Because this is where, for example, for me, and as the definition of talent density goes, an environment where you can learn from people, it's an environment where you're highly engaged.
Exactly, and the most let's say important about this concept is that one talent is attracting another talent, right? So when you have really high talents in your team, then that makes it far easier to attract more very highly skilled professionals to your team, which is obviously crucial to the growth of your business. Szymon, that's great. Do you want to add anything towards like building the team before we move forward to some other topic?
I don't know.
Okay, that's good. So I think that now we should probably go to some, let's say, mistakes that you have made across those different ventures. That if you could list, I don't know, 3, maybe the top ones, or that are coming to your head now that you really regret, or that you learned the most out of, then that would be nice to hear. You could refer to some stories.
Maybe we can slice it into some categories. That's going to be easier. So maybe we can start with people.
Yes, we touched people a lot.
Yeah. So I think my top mistake is that I assumed a lot. Assumed that people are motivated, or they want to do something, or they want to grow, or they want to have this role, they want to be promoted, and stuff like that. Assumption is a function of ego. So if you have a high ego, you're gonna assume a lot for everybody around you and for yourself. So when I got my ass kicked in the process of building these startups multiple times, I reached a point where I decided, okay, I'm gonna ask people. So I started asking people, hey, where do you wanna go? What is the stuff that you wanna learn? What do you think about doing this or that role? Or maybe startups are not for you. Well, why do you think that this is for you? And like, at this point, I assume very little in my life, in doing business, and it really helps me with people, especially, and managing people. Because before I felt very uncomfortable managing people. I'm kind of an introvert that learned how to work in a society. So it's much easier for me now when I simply ask people, and I become more of a coach in these conversations than somebody who is telling people what to do.
Awesome. Any other mistake that you either regret or you remember that it was, worth mentioning?
If it comes to people, I think the lesson is that business is people, and it comes in all shades of gray.
What about the other? What about the other group of people that we haven't touched, like investors, for instance, right? Because we touched a lot, co-founders, teammates. But do you have any, let's say, lessons learned from the relationships with investors, and what's your approach? Because there's always fight on OMGKRK, meaning whether to bootstrap or whether to, raise funds, and how far to go in this race of series. So
this fight became easier last years because now you just don't have much choice but to bootstrap until you find product market fit. So I think it's easier in that sense. I'm joking, of course. But if it comes to investors, oh my God, so many lessons. First of all, this is the approach. It's very funny because when you look at the investment agreements of Polish investors or even Western investors, you're gonna look at this like, oh my God, these guys assume it's gonna be a unicorn. Like, if you look at the terms, the terms are prepared for a unicorn. And it's great. It's great to aim high and try to kind of hit that really high bar. This is what we all do for all the different reasons, but we want to build successful businesses. But the odds for us here, Europeans, to reach unicorn status, there are slightly smaller odds than in the US, where the market is bigger, more financing is there. You don't have to have any difference in product to sell to California and Texas and New York. So when you're looking at the term sheets, when you're looking at the investment agreements, make sure that they protect also a scenario in which your business is $5 million exit or $10 million exit. It's not it's not a unicorn, but it's enough money to start building next things. And if there are terms for liquidation preference that do 3 or 5x on the money that investor have invested, guess what? You exit on $10 million, which could sound like a pretty nice deal, yeah, after 2 years because, I don't know, or 5 years, doesn't matter. But you exit at $10 million, and your investors, they put $3 million, and they have 3x preference. What does it mean? It means that they're going to get $9 million at the exit, and the remaining $1 million is going to be divided according to shares. So you're going to get peanuts, yeah? And trust me, most of the term sheets and investment agreements you're going to get, they're going to have leak preference. Or they're going to have some other ways to put this as a cost of capital, as bonuses and premiums and all of that stuff. So you have to be very careful with agreements. If an investor gives you an agreement that has 20, 30, 50 pages, run away. Don't even go into discussing those pages with them, because it's going to take you months and you're going to be so defocused. And at the end of the day, you're going to have guys who's going to be checking all those dots and
okay, so
pieces.
when you are comparing, because you have experience probably from getting money from various sources, right? You mentioned like public programs to Western investors, probably Polish ones as well. Any thoughts on comparing those different funding sources, like which would you recommend or which you want from a particular reason?
Yeah. So I would say always aim high. If you have a product market fit, and if you have a business that serves a large market, don't settle for what you're gonna get. Don't settle for the first term sheet or the second one. See what investors from Western world's gonna tell you. Take a hike to Berlin and talk to investors there. See the way how they think. See what is the difference. Don't rush into this. This is literally a marriage, which is worse because it's only for a couple of years. So you already know you're gonna divorce at some point. Yeah. So make sure you find really adult, mature partners that believe in your vision, and you'll be able to see and smell those cheap shots, and just don't go with them.
Okay, Szymon. Because I want to give the space for the audience to ask additional questions, but any other let's say tips that you would like to give either the wannabe entrepreneur or very early stage entrepreneur that it's already starting his venture, something that you feel would be good for them to know, besides obviously the things that we've already touched?
Yeah, I think it's important that the times are tough, they're different, but it's very important for entrepreneurs to keep kind of swimming, keep being optimistic. There is so many opportunities on the market. Business-wise, there are spaces that are green. For example, it can be luxury products. Right now, you have the highest purchase orders for yachts and luxury products all over the world. It's something that can be used. There is a lot of demand in the beauty industry. Sustainability is very hot. So if you have a startup that can help with sustainable business development or sustainability elements of both business but also social life, and a couple of others. Anyway, there's always a field you can start building on. You don't have to build it super fast. You can build it accordingly to the current market, to the situation, build it after hours. But what is important, get to the point where you can bootstrap the business, where you're 100% sure you have a product market fit, and this is where you can decide if you want to go alone or if you want to get an investor on board. Yeah, but when you get an investor on board, keep in mind that for the very first round, you already subscribe to the second one. And what that means if it comes to your life and how much you will have to work towards making sure you're going to get to base 2 on that hike.
Awesome. Thank you so much.